All right. Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening. It depends upon the time when you are exactly watching this video discussion. This will be a full and formal discussion. So I will be giving this as of the moment because I don't have the luxury of time yet for everyone to discuss live because I'm handling currently around 12 sections on ethics. All right, so but for now, please bear with me. Watch this discussion from start to end, and I'm glad no because some of the sections or most of the sections have already done their oral examinations regarding the readings I've provided about virtue ethics, and some of them or most of them exactly have provided or extended uh, beyond or extended extra mile no on studying and reading something else, especially on the readings. I mean beyond the readings, like the Nicomachean Ethics, which is the work of Aristotle. So Nicomachean Ethics actually class that was written by Aristotle in order to instruct or to guide his son Nicomachus. But aside from that one, it became a one, no? It became a not just for his son but for everyone. So although ancient, the book or the work is ancient, I can say that this Nicomachean Ethics is actually timeless. It's still applicable and up to this day and to everyone. So there are criticisms as other perspectives or ethical perspectives would be. This one has also criticisms, and some of you are aware of it, especially the conflict, no, the moral conflict. All right, so let us proceed with the with the next slide. So let's start with the basic framework of virtue ethics. What type of a person should be. So I'll start with the with the discussion regarding what is the purpose of man. So this discussion will not only focus on Aristotle, but it will provide you a glimpse from Socrates to Plato to Aristotle regarding teleological ethics. When we say teleological ethics, teleo, it is talking about the purpose, the the function. Let us say, for example, what is the reason why during war there is a military strategy. So the purpose it serves is for victory. So for example, in the last centuries, so kingdoms to kingdoms yung war, yung battle. So in every kingdom they have respective military strategy on how to win the war. So the purpose is to achieve or to attain victory, of course. And that is the purpose served by the military strategy, and that purpose is good. So the premise here is that according to Aristotle, that everything is aimed for something, is created for something, and that something is good, whatever it is. Let's say, for example, medicine. What is the purpose why medicine was made or discovered or invented? So of course, the purpose of the medicine is for health, in order for those who have illness, sickness will recover. So health. Excuse me. And for example, printer. What is the function or the purpose of printer? That is to print. Except those with the photocopier feature, just the printer itself. What is the purpose of the printer? So that is to print. So if that function is removed from the printer, then that becomes useless. So like also for the calculator, the purpose of calculator is to calculate, to compute. If you remove that function, then that calculator will no longer be calculator. It will diminish its purpose. So, in analogy to man, what is the purpose of man? What is the function of man? What is the aim of man? So, man is created for something, and that something is good, or the aim of man is something is good. What is good of man? The question is different, ha. Okay, usually ako madunggan ni what is good of a man? That is not the correct question. What is good man? So what is not the question they are trying to revise is that what is good of a man? No, what is good of man? Not of a man. What is good of man? So we are going to tackle that one later on. And what is the purpose of man? So as we tackle or discussed before previously, utilitarianism and duty. So utilitarianism, that's happiness. Likewise, similarly, um, virtue ethics is as it corresponds to the title, that's being virtuous now. Also, the end goal is happiness, of course. That is eudaimonia, but in the I don't know, in the kind of broader sense. It's not the sense that's being taught in utilitarianism. Well, in the ontology, it's following duty. That's different. So let's start with the question: what type of a person should you be? So premise one: an action is right. So IFF, that is if and only if. So an action is right if and only if it is what a virtuous agent would do in similar circumstances. Let's say, for example, I did this choice, no? I did this choice. So, for example, in a store, or let's say souvenir shop, not shop, no? Okay, but for example, naka-display lang sa table. So, there's no, wala ang tagiya, wala po yung tao. So, I have all the temptation to get anything you want and leave. So, what would I do is instead, despite of the temptations, I will get an item, and then afterwards, I gonna leave a payment in the table. So, alright. So, in that particular situation, of course, I will leave the payment now. I'll take the corresponding item with its amount. So, if the other person will do it as well, like that, and that person is virtuous, then I can say that the action I did is right. Diba? So, next premise is a virtuous agent. They being talked here in the premise 1, because this is premise A, 1A. The virtuous agent being talked about in the premise 1 is that the one who acts virtuously. So let's say, for example, I'm not that virtuous now. I will base the judgment on the action based on the other person, which is virtuous, who did the same thing. So who has and exercises the virtues. So I can say that my action is right because the virtuous person did it the same way. So premise 2. A virtue is a character trait a human being needs to flourish or live well. So you have to form your 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 desires, your emotions, your traits, your attitude, most especially. Kanang dali kita masuko, no? There's something wrong with that. Dali kitang mangluod or something like that. So there's something wrong with that. All right. So let's have an overview of ethical system virtue ethics. Rather than focusing on what we ought to do, virtue ethics offers a distinctive approach whereby we focus on human character, asking the questions, what should I be? Thus, ethical life involves envisioning ideals for human life and embodying those ideals in one life. Virtues are ways in which we embody those ideals. So, we embody. Dili lang kay it's just only a sidekick or something, it's really part of us. So, virtue is an excellence of some sort. Originally, the word meant strength and referred to as manliness, quality of being man. So, in Aristotle's Ethics, arete, Greek word of ethics, is used, which is transcribed as excellences of various types. So Aristotle says there are two types of virtue, the intellectual and the moral. So intellectual virtues are excellences of the mind. So like ability to understand, to reason, to judge. So moral virtues learned by repetition. So this is ano no, uh, intellectual virtues can be earned by instruction or by listening no to or following instruction, while moral virtues learned by repetition or by habit. So like practicing honesty, we become honest not just ano no not just occasionally, but most mostly or always, not just not just occasionally. So to be virtuous requires knowledge, practice, and consistent effort at character building. So take note that knowledge, you have the knowledge, you are practicing it, and you are consistent, and that makes your character you, because that is character building. So for Plato, to be virtuous, we must understand what contributes to our overall good and have. First, our desire, that's appetitive, um, appetitive and workers. So, it refers to appetitive, that is workers, because it's being referred to the parts of the soul. This is according to Plato. Second is spirit, means warriors or the will. And the third is reason or ruler guardians. This is the the faculty of the soul that thinks. So educated properly, so they will aggregate. So what he's saying is that these three would cooperate, no? Appetitive, spirit, and reason. But the reason is the guardian, the ruler. Educated properly, so they will aggregate with the guidance provided by the rational part of the soul. This is coming from his book, The Republic. When these three parts of the soul conflict with each other, it might move us to act in ways that go against the greater good. So if they will not comply to their respective roles, then it will also affect you, your being. So if, let's say for example, your reason is no longer that applicable. Let's say for example, gibulagan kasi mong uyab. Then what will happen is that you will be out of your mind. Your mind will no longer be you will no longer be that significant. Mas mulabaw ng imong emotion. So you will be thinking, you will be saying something that is out of your emotion, not from your reason. So from Socrates, virtue is knowledge. No one intentionally pursues what is wrong. Ignorance and forgetfulness are at fault when one does something wrong. That particular statement of Socrates is very powerful actually, that no one intentionally pursues what is wrong. Although there are really some out of need, out of something, but if they only know the consequences, and of course, they end up changing themselves. For example, kanang mga snatchers, no? There are stories of snatchers nga, in the end of the day, they found out that they are really not doing the right thing. And they ended changing themselves and doing, having that transformation. So, of course, one of such that makes someone to do wrong is ignorance and forgetfulness. That's according to Socrates. So for Plato, he's concerned with the quality of a person's inner state, and he prized beauty, health, harmony, and strength of a soul as the virtues we should emulate or imitate. We must have a well-ordered soul, the parts that I mentioned earlier, whereby our appetites, emotions, and reason operate in their respective roles. So when reason governs, justice manifests itself from out of the well-ordered person. Well, for Aristotle, the function of man is reason. This is what I'm saying earlier. What is the function of man? What is good of man? So the good of man, or the function of man, is reason. The good of the thing is when it performs its function well. It must function well as its condition, because if it will not, then it will not bring good, which is peculiar to him, unique. Thus the function of man is reason, And the life that is distinctive of humans is the life in accordance with reason. So if the function of man is reason, then the good man is the man who reasons well. This is the life of excellence. Eudaimonia, human flourishing and well-being. And the other term for that is stability. We say stability with your emotions, stability financially, stability with your mental well-being. That, you cannot just rashly or harshly decide on something. So we must have knowledge. That's for Aristotle. You must have knowledge. Second, must choose the acts. There should be deliberation. You have to decide thoroughly which is the right choice or the right action, and choose them for your own sake. And finally, the action must proceed from a firm character. You believe that it's real light, then it is what it is. Dili kay balimbing kayo, will do this thing right now, and then the other time the different thing inapod imong buhaton. So for Plato believed our natural desires are greedy and depraved. So lahi si Plato, no? He believed that man by nature, or our natural desires, we are greedy and depraved. So thus they must be held in tight check by the powers of reason. Na dapat always on guard ang atong reason. He compared the human soul to a city-state made up of ruler guardians, and peasants artisans. So for Plato's philosophy and ethics, he is first talking with the center in the person, and then iyan ang i-relate later sa society. So every reality is an archetype of a corresponding eternal form. So this is Plato. He is the first, I guess, proponent of dualism. When we say dualism, he's talking some situations here on earth, and then he is talking as well something in the world of ideas. Maybe you can perceive it as something like heaven, but for him it is the world of ideas, that the perfect form of something here on earth is in the world of ideas. So the goal of life is to actualize one's true nature together with one's many innate potentialities. So four primary integrated virtues. First, wisdom, which corresponds to reason. Courage corresponds to the will. Temperance corresponds to desire. And justice links individual to society. So wisdom to reason, courage to will, temperance to desire. So long as the individual is governed by the power of reason, and reason is assisted by the courage and willpower of the guardians, the unruly desires can be suppressed. So if reason for a moment lets down its guard, so nawala na, like for example, katong ingon ako nabulagan si Moyab, no? Wala ang imong pagka-rational. So then the desires will exert their power, seize control, and lead the person to corruption and immorality. So mahitabo, di na kamutrog kaon or something, di na kabuhat sa imong trabaho or whatever, di na katuon. So that would take control sa imong pagkatao. So the highest good is the well-ordered whole, to which each part contributes according to its own capacity. So a thing in reality is good insofar as it participates in and corresponds to the form of the good, which is the high point of the forms. So main points to know. Plato writes dialogues rather than philosophical treatises. Hence, most of his philosophical positions are voiced through the character of Socrates. Na voice, no, kay si Socrates wala ganoon siya gisulat. His writings or his contributions to philosophy was written by Plato in the form of dialogues. Kumbaga, naminaw siya ni Socrates, siya may tigsulat like such. But for certain, we really have no idea if it was really coming from Socrates. Although there are accounts that that Socrates was just only a creation of Plato. But, let's just say, for example, that Socrates is really the actual teacher. So even though Socrates was Plato's actual teacher, the positions and doctrines traditionally attributed to Socrates are actually Plato's account of his teacher. Socrates never wrote anything. So Plato advances a teleological conception of morality. We live the good life insofar as we perform our distinctively human function well. So the soul is divided into three parts, as again, appetitive, spirit, and reason. Each part helps us to fulfill critical needs, but in Plato's view, only the rational part of the soul is fit to rule. So in order to live a virtuous life, it is necessary for the individual to cultivate balance in his or her soul. Thus, persons ruled by appetite or spirit are out of balance, and their actions are apt to provoke personal or social disharmony. Next is that appetite in cases where appetite rules, like for example oligarchy and tyrannical character fits here. As I said, from the person, it will relate it to the society. Oligarchy, no? The few, the rich individuals, katong mga gamhanan, no? Tungkol sa impluensya ug sa kwarta nga mag-rule. So individuals are at the mercy of their biological or material whims. Nagdepende sa ilahang addiction. So alcohol addiction, let's say for example, individuals who are addicted to self-destructive patterns of behavior are apt to feed their appetites at the expense of other life pursuits. So people can also be ruled by material greed in much the same way. So kung depende sa mga addiction, kung addiction yung kwarta, you will no longer give any attention to the other needs of your body or yourself. The key here is that desire is determinative. These are cravings at the highest degree. So, spirit, the emotional, the passionate side of our character is centered on the idea of status on a social level. Ambition, desire for honor and glory, moral indignation and cravings for admiration all fit under the umbrella of spirit. So this is us. This is very relatable, no? Love relationships fit into this category as well. Our interactions with others provide core experiences that influences our emotional development. Like for example, if this will rule you as a person, like mga manag-uyab, so possessive, so like such attitude, no, that dapat nakagwardya ka sa tanang buhat ug action sa imong partner o sa imong uyab. So that's very wrong. Love is not such. You should not own your partner. You should give freedom, no? Because in the end, if that love is really true, then that will prevail. So reason, the intellectual, thinking part of the soul that must weigh options. This will be the one, no, who will deliberate. So decide between the alternatives and suppress dangerous urges. So Plato clearly puts reason in control of the soul because it acts as good counsel seeking understanding and insight before acting. So rational individuals, take note, rational individuals, those who are using their reason, possess a strong contemplative faculty. So they think before they act. Dili kay pasagad lang, no? And are unlikely to take rash action in any given situation. Unlikely to take rash. Di-press nato nga magsigig rash. So, know thyself. This is Socrates saying. Plato contends that each one of us performs or does one thing best. We each have one best skill. So, katagusan na to. And it is the development of this skill that is of paramount importance in creating a harmonious existence. If we do not have insight into what we do best, the chances of achieving a balanced soul are likely reduced. So, hence, the Socratic imperative, know thyself. So, you have to examine yourself. You have to know yourself. Ila-ilahon nimo imong kagalingon in order for you to know what unsa gud imong gusto sa imong kinabuhi. So, just society. First, ask yourself, is it possible to have a just society? So, this is a very heavy and substantial question or powerful questions. What would it look like? So, there are many philosophers, thinkers, and great persons now in history who envisions a perfect world, a perfect society, a just society, where peace, love, kindness, compassion, and all the virtues reigns. But somehow, they have presented all of the possible, ways, procedures, or rules how to achieve it. But the thing on how to put it in action, how to make it a reality, is really impossible. That is why we have the term utopia, no? Utopia. It is a perfect society or world that only happens, no, in the other state. Something na only in the imagination. We only envision it as something to be, but it will really not to be. Right? To be, to exist, no? So, let's say for the Philippine context, um, let's say, no, katong si Noesca, itong yung giposil, ang duwa ka anak og nanay. So, was there a deliberation happen in the mind of the police before shooting the two? Or was he driven by his emotion? So that's the example of Plato, no? That appetite or emotion should not rule. It should be the reason, because desire or emotion should likely fall into mistake or distraction. So how would we direct education, the economy, leisure, and social resources? Was it fair? Fair bang ato ang kuan? Distribution. So there is communism. That was the perfect ideology proposed by Marx and Engels, no? To what that was very effective in the mind and of the people, that they wanted to kick out the rich, the bourgeois, because they are the proletariat. When you say proletariat, they are just in the lower ranks, and they are much more money than the bourgeois, the bourgeois. So so what happened? There is a revolution in order to wipe out those rich class, to make it even again, to make it fair again, so that there will be distribution. But when you're gonna look and examine closely the communist nations, it is somehow no different with democratic former governments. Still, they adopted the capitalism as their economy. Nothing has really changed that big. It's just the same. So Plato wrestles with the idea of justice in his most famous work entitled The Republic. Alright, so Plato views social justice exactly parallels his notion of individual justice. There are three parts of the soul. That's what I said: reason, spirit, and appetite. Reason corresponds to the society as philosopher king. They are the ones should lead the society. Spirit, they are the auxiliaries or guardians, mga lawmakers, no? Mga no, not lawmakers, but they are the law enforcement uh, people or agencies, military, police. Appetite, the craftsmen, artisans, and traders. So they are the workers, they are the peasants, and that supply the economy. Alright. Alright, so let's move forward to Aristotle, no? Ethical system. So for him, though we are naturally suited to moral goodness, so somehow they are different with Plato, no? Because Plato, our natural desires are greedy and depraved. For Aristotle, it's different. We are naturally suited to moral goodness, but we don't automatically develop such inclinations. We have such, but need to practice in order for it to be part of us. So your habits and inclinations develop with practice. What you sow is what you reap. So carefully cultivate moral goodness by rigorous practice. So as a famous quotes, no, saying that like there are there are two wolves. So there are two wolves in us, na like the bad and the good. The one that will prevail is the one you are feeding. So kung sige ka buhat pud og kuan, dili maayo, then the bad wolf will prevail. So that will make who you are. That will be who you are. Well, the good, if mao pud mo sige buhaton, mga maayo pud yung butang, then you will be good as well. So in order to desire to act virtuously, you must carefully and consistently practice doing right until it becomes habitual and natural. So at first, it might be hard, but later on, it will be like as it is. It will become natural for you. Like, by being honest, no, by in your action and the way you feel and the way you think and the way you say, everything is true and honest. So later on, you will really be that person. Di nagkakabalo mamakak, I guess. So ideal of virtue is doing the right thing because you want to do the right thing. You desire to act virtuously. It is your want. Gusto nimong buhaton dili kay napugsan ka or out of duty. So if you act selfishly, then you will become a selfish person. Eventually, what feels right to you may be very wrong. So, with practice and diligence, you can develop the habits and inclinations of a virtuous person. So thus choose to be virtuous, desire, plus judgment must agree. So what is virtue ethics? Virtue ethics emphasizes the development of character as its central theme rather than trying to define goodness or rightness. It is a eudaimonistic theory. So eudaimonistic, it's happiness. So stability. Seems like ma-achieve na nimo na, you will no longer look for something else. It's to be our highest goal. So same with utilitarianism. Happiness also is the goal, the highest goal of virtue ethics, but in a different sense. Kato kay there is a principle of utility, while duty disregard yung happiness. So according to Aristotle, we attain happiness by cultivating both intellectual and moral virtue. We become virtuous by habit. We deliberately and consistently choose the mean between excess and deficiency until it becomes second nature. I know most of you have already know what is a golden mean. You're choosing an action which is between an excess and deficient. So the best example, the famous example is the courage, which is between the foolhardiness and cowardice. Foolhardiness, isog na pugka kaayo to the extent nga ikadaot na pod nimo. While cowardice is sobra na pod kay katalawan. So we are what we repeatedly do. So excellence then is not an act but a habit. Like for example, you aspire to become an excellent student, no? So studying once is not enough. It should be a habitual action for you to become an excellent one. So virtue equals to excellence. Intellectual virtue can be taught. It can be earned by instructions, no? Kung na magtudlo nimo. So a good person succeeds at rational activity. So moral virtue is acquired through excellent habits, kato mga maayo nga mga actions nga himuon ni mga habits. So we become good by doing good things. Alangan po mamaayo ka by doing bad things. So we become virtuous by practicing virtuous acts. So that begets virtuous acts po. So next is that this is from right. So this is the the becoming agathos or good and also achieving your diamond. So yeah, this is the steps. So you have to choose an action, a good habit, then you have to master it, and until it becomes natural to become you good, and then processing agathos leads to eudaimon. So that's in balance. Excellent traits and human character generally produce excellent actions. So a virtue is a habit of excellence, a beneficial tendency, a skilled disposition that enables a person to realize the crucial potentialities that constitute proper human flourishing. What is a habit? A disposition to think. This is holistic, not just on the way you express or of saying something, but the way you feel, the way you think, desire, and act in a certain way without having a tendency to consciously will to do so. Not conscious by doing it. It should be natural. It will be part of you. What is character? The sum total of one's habits. So character is the whole of you, the whole being, your whole being, your habits, your tendencies, and your well-being. Four cardinal virtues: temperance, courage, prudence, and justice. So piety or faith is sometimes considered the fifth virtue. So, closer look. This is coming from Stanford Encyclopedia. A virtue such as honesty and generosity is not just a tendency. Mingag tendency, murag maabot-abot ra. So, to do. It is not just a tendency to do what is honest or generous, nor is it to be helpfully specified as desirable or morally valuable character trait. So, it is not a tendency, dili po siya desirable or morally valuable character trait. It is indeed a character trait. Dili siya desirable lang, dili sab siya tendency, but it is really a character trait. That is a disposition which is well entrenched in its possessor, ikaw mismo. Something that, as we say, goes all the way down. Natural, nimo. It's an embodiment of you. Unlike a habit such as being a tea drinker, but the disposition in question, far from being a single track disposition to do honest actions, or even honest actions for certain reasons, is multi-track. It is concerned with many other actions as well, with emotions, emotional reactions, choices, values, desires, perceptions, attitudes, interests, expectations, and sensibilities. So to possess a virtue is to be certain sort of a person with a certain complex mindset. So hence the extreme recklessness of attributing a virtue on the basis of single action. Alright, so the three central themes, virtue, eudaimonia, and phronesis, practical wisdom. So virtue, a habit of excellence, a beneficial tendency. It is, a holistic disposition. And eudaimonia, human flourishing, successful living, stability. Phronesis, this is practicing the golden mean. Be moderate in all things to an appropriate degree. Avoid both deficiency and excessiveness. Cultivate proper virtues that are deemed most worthy by your community. So, mimic, follow the virtuous person. Practical wisdom. So, good person consistently, there's a consistency, doing the right thing in the right way and for the right reason. So, let's say, for example, you're angry, and you have the right to be angry. So, just being angry is different from being angry at the right time, at the right amount, and at the right circumstances. So, you should have control over your emotion. If you can observe some mature person on how they deal with crisis, they're so mature enough not to dwell, not to start a trouble, but being diplomatic. There's diplomacy. So there's no rule for becoming good. Of course, there's no rule for becoming good because all of us have subjective perceptions. We have different cultural background. We have different upbringings. So there's a lot of subjective in us. So that's why there's no rule for becoming good. We have to study on how. And distinguishing good from bad, right from wrong. We have that, different way of understanding things. So if this is flourishing, like living or forming yourself into become a better person, we have different style. And as the problem would be, we perceive the problem differently. So there are people nga pagbulagan okay ra na po yung mga tao nga bulagan sakit po kayo. Or na mga tao nga pag mahutdan na kwarta, okay ra nila na po mahutdan nga dako po kayong butang. So it's also the same way nga in performing or choosing good actions. Though it's hard, but you can eventually manage it to make it your habit and eventually become your character. So there's no rule to it. All you have to do is to examine and know yourself, what you need for yourself, and how you would form or flourish yourself. So it is the practical wisdom is the ability to draw the right distinctions and tell right from wrong. Of course, we all have that innate capacity to know what is good and what is bad. Alright, so these are the table of the golden mean. So these are the virtues, which is the mean, no, between excess and deficiency, whilst fear is somehow makarelate ka sa mga situation nga dunay danger. So courage is in need in times of danger. And rashness, kumbaga pasagad ra ka, inisog. And cowardice is also and going on. So let's proceed. So in this, for example, in this table as well, it should be in between. Rashness, well, courage is in between cowardice and rashness. Virtue as a mean. We must give into desire in the right circumstances, the right way, for the right reason. So, you have to know this as well because it's ulit-ulit na. So, moderation in all things is paramount. Like in food, kung unsa bisag it is very relevant. Bisag asa na sobra, dili jud maayo. Bisag asa na kulang di pud maayo. So, moderation. Sa pag-inom sa moderation. So, this too, whereby choices. So, in the virtuous person, desire and judgment agree, whereby choices and action will be free of the conflict and pain that inevitably accompany those who are acratic. So, or incratic. So, conflict and pain, kaning acratic mga, they are morally weak person. Nga, bisag kay balo na sila nga mao na buhaton, mo follow gid silang emotion. While the incratic person are sobra pod, morally strong person, nga bisag kabalo silang buhaton, napod sila ilahang gustong buhaton. So neither kind of choice are desire and judgment in harmony. So diri nilang duha, dili gid mag harmonize ang desire and judgment. So why does desire and judgment agree for the virtuous? The reason why the choices and actions will be free of the conflict and pain that inevitably accompanies those of the acratic and incratic agent is because the part of their soul that governs choice and action is so disposed that desire and judgment coincide. So the disposition is concerned with choices as would be determined by the person of practical wisdom. So this will be actions lying between extreme alternatives. They will lie in a man popularly called the golden mean, relative to the talents and stores of the agent. Alright, so let's read this one. So it involves, for instance, feeling anger or extending generosity at the right time, toward the right people, in the right way, and for the right reason. So intellectual virtues such as excellence at mathematics can be acquired by teaching, but moral virtues cannot. Dili na to ma-achieve ang moral virtues by from teaching, but by habit. But intellectual virtues, if you're excellent in math, science, or whatever subjects, that's through teaching. So I may know what ought to be done and even perform virtuous acts without being able to act virtuously. Kay baldutan no, unsay buhaton and unsaon pagbuhat, but still we refuse to do, so that's something wrong. There's something wrong with that as well. So nonetheless, because moral virtue is a disposition concerning choice, deliberate performance of virtuous acts can ultimately still instill a disposition to choose them in harmony and with pleasure, and hence to act virtuously. So, what does it take to be fully virtuous? So, phronesis comes out at least 3 sources. Comes only with the experience of life. Naging mature ta tungod sa atong experiences sa kinabuhi, like sige ra tagtagaan mga bugat kay nga mga pagsulay, nagtugo ka sa pobre nga pamilya, nag-eskwela ka as working student, and a lot more. So the virtuous are mindful of the consequences of possible actions. How could they fail to be reckless, thoughtless, and short-sighted if they were not? Moreover, they have developed the capacity to recognize some features of a situation as more important than others, or indeed in that situation as the only relevant ones. The wise do not see things in the same way as the nice adolescents who, with their imperfect virtues, still tend to see personally disadvantageous nature with certain action
as competing in importance with its honesty or benevolence or justice. So it says that kinsa tong maayo na, mature na, lahi gud ang ilang panglantaw sa sitwasyon kaysa katong mga batan-on pa nga wala pa kayo kasinatian. Second, the other source for to become to how to attain practical wisdom, mimic or following the virtuous people. So we might add that it also takes a certain set of external goods, right background, right education, right financial resources, right community. Mo nang alisod kaayo no. Pag mahimong maayo pud nga tao kung imong background is pagpadako nimo nagdako ka sa pamilya pud nga wala klaro, kumbaga broken family mo nya ang pang-income sa mo so garol, ang pang-income sa mama papa panugal or something. So of course, dugay po kay ka mamulat into into maturity. So, 3 commonly ascribed advantages of virtue ethics. Focuses on the development of habits that promote human excellence. Focuses on an account in which being virtuous means recognizing how rational behavior requires being sensitive to the social and personal dimensions of life. Focuses on how rational actions are not based on abstract principles but on moderation. So take note of these 3. So this all for your good. So this virtue ethics is focusing for your good. And if you have, if you have transformed yourself maturely, it will not only for yourself, it will also for the society. So if you're gonna imagine a society full of virtuous people, then our society could be different. I guess justice would be realized and we'll have a better nation. So common criticisms of virtue ethics, as I've said earlier, every perspective there is a criticism. Like vast differences on what constitutes a virtue, lahi-lahi nga paglantaw no, or pag-define sa virtue. For example, for different people having different cultural background in society or opinion. But nonetheless, virtue is virtue. Diba? And lacks clarity in resolving moral conflicts like being honest and kind. Like saying the truth would hurt the person. It would either you will become honest or you will become kind by saying the otherwise in order not to hurt the person. But I guess it's not about it cannot really hurt the person if telling the truth. It's on the way you tell the truth. It's on how you express it. So they said that virtue ethics is self-centered because its primary concern is the agent's own character, of course. But its intention is not self-centered. It could be, you might say it's self-centered, but the intention of virtue ethics is not only for the person, but for the society as a whole. It was made for the person, but its intention is not for selfishness. Well-being is a master value. Okay? Emprecise thou. It fails to give us any help with the practicalities of how we should behave, because virtue ethics does not concern with having uniform behavior. We are not uniform at all. Each of us are peculiar, unique. So each of us have different way of achieving maturity. So virtue ethics leaves us hostage to luck, for only some will attain moral maturity, others will not. Moreover, life is very fragile. One small misstep and it will cost you everything. Will forever be beyond your reach. It's not really to luck, because forming yourself, it requires effort. It does not relies to luck. So I guess that's all for virtue ethics for today. And if you have questions, I would like to address the next discussion. You can drop it down at the comment below. So thank you so much and God bless.